Right, Jim.
There we go.
There we go.
Mate, we got there.
We got there. After not being able to get into my own program.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. We haven't spoken for a little while, but yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, good. I know
Yeah.
there's lots I wanted to chat about. Lots. I was just thinking about this just as I was making the tea before this. I was like, do you know what I hadn't thought about the when we had that chat. Well, I can't remember when it was. Start of the spring, start of summer.
Yeah.
And you came up with that idea of writing down like an avatar for yourself and scoring out like a top trumps. What are you really good at? What are your attributes? And I was just, since that chat, like not necessarily my playing has just improved technically, but just the way I'm playing has improved.
Oh, great.
Because I'm now not trying to cover everything.
Yeah.
I'm now thinking, right, okay, that's kind of a weak spot for me. So I'm not going to sit there and just try and learn loads of jazz solos. I'm just going to really focus on what I'm really fucking good at.
Yeah.
And just the enjoyment of playing has changed. Like it's the enjoyment and love of playing has come back.
I think that's a positive, I think that's the number one positive, actually. I think, because I've had that. I mean, I had a similar experience where I always name drop my mate John Wheatcroft in nearly every interview or any time I'm talking. I don't know if you know John.
I know of John, yeah.
Fucking unbelievable, utterly unbelievable musician. But I've spent so much time with and around him over the years. I mean, we're really close friends, but we've worked really closely together, doing, everything, gigs. We've even written magazine columns together and done features for Guitarist. We've done, these kind of residential workshops. We've done teaching together. We've done everything together. Yeah. And he's so good that it's and he's older than me, and it's a kind of one of those things where you're around someone, so you try and almost morph into them a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I went through a kind of almost crisis of, kind of character really with music, where I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit, because I think I was trying to do a similar thing where I was trying to keep up with people around me that were amazing at certain things. So I was trying to just juggle everything. I was trying to, really get into like jazz playing and stuff like that. And actually it's just, I like it. I can do it a bit. I've studied it, but it's not what I'm into. And I found that actually stepping away from some of those people and not being around them so much and not playing with them, I sort of started going, do you know what I like? I like fucking Eddie Van Halen, and I like Slash, and I like this, and I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And I started to be able to just almost kind of get all the distraction out of the way, and actually started just listening to albums that I'm really into, and it kind of got me down this kind of rabbit hole of trying to sort of like, drill into the things that you're just naturally good at.
Yeah.
And where I started using that as a teaching sort of methodology, it started to just get other kind of, other players kind of on more of a positive track, just mindset wise, and just, just even their sort of momentum and their productivity just within their own practice and playing was kind of, seeing sort of positive results, So I sort of, the more I kind of got into that idea, I found that, everyone that was kind of coming to me for, I mean, I didn't do any private teaching for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm doing now, which, we talked about, I've only been doing about a year, this kind of coaching thing. But nearly everyone that was coming to me was coming from a place of, I've been to music college. We've been told that you have to do this and this and this and this and this to be a session player, which is a, a weird term nowadays anyway.
Yeah.
But they have this idea that they have to be able to play giant steps in every key at 300 BPM. But then they also have to be able to shred and then play slide guitar like Derek Trucks, and then play amazing fingerstyle, and then sight read a classical piece. And it's just, who the fuck does that? That's bullshit.
I'm yet to be asked to do any of those things for a pro
exactly
job.
Yeah, Yeah.
It's yeah. And I think that's it's so fucking overwhelming. Like, even for someone that's been doing it for 20 years, I left college, I think it was 2003. I think the rise of YouTube and Instagram, with you'll slide once and you'll see a kid doing some crazy Eddie Van Halen tapping, or you see like a Tim Henson video, like, oh shit, man, I need to get some of that. And then you do another swipe and there's Jerry Douglas doing some really amazing dope, and you're like, oh, there's another swipe and there's some 10-year-old kid, you're like, fucking hell, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
but that's it. You're just open to this distraction. I mean, if you think about all the Premier League musicians, or just the people you're into, the chances are they started playing at a time when you would hear one album that you were absolutely obsessed with. You'd listen to that constantly. You'd be able to almost internally jukebox that album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you get deep. You're deep with it. Whereas nowadays, I remember saying in the early days of BitTorrenting, when people used to just illegally download everything. I remember saying to this guy who started studying at the place I was teaching at, and he kind of fancied himself as a kind of jazz player, and he could play a little bit already, but a typical one of these kind of people that wasn't anywhere near as good as he thought he was,
right,
and thought that he was talented enough to almost sort of jump over a lot of things, and was trying to kind of play all this very modern sort of Adam Rogers, Kurt Rosenwinkel style of jazz guitar. And I was like, have you ever listened to Wes Montgomery? No. And it's like, right, well, you need to fucking bin this shit.
Yeah.
And actually know what you're trying to do first. It's a little bit like saying that, well, I'm into, Joe Satriani, but I've never heard Jimi Hendrix. You haven't kind of heard where it's come from. So you're not aware of the evolutionary steps of what's happening. So I said to him, why don't you go and check out like the first Wes album or something like that, Boss Guitar, or one of those things.
Yeah.
And he went, okay, I'll do that. Off he went. And then I saw him the next day in college, and he stuck his head into the classroom and he said, I've downloaded everything Wes Montgomery's ever recorded. I've got all of it. So yeah, I'm going to be good now. And I just thought,
you
literally missed the point. Missed the point completely. Do you know what I mean? Almost like I've got the secret. I've got the keys now. So I'm going to be, I'm going to be fucking amazing. Totally missed the point. And I think that's the issue with all of us now, is that YouTube's it's like it's the best thing in the world and the devil. Because you can, I mean, I'm guilty of this too. You look at one thing, it moves to another thing, to another, and then all of a sudden I'm convinced that I need to move to Nashville, or I need to like, it just kind of gets in your psyche and then distorts where you're at. But at the best, though, it's great.
I mean, I still use it as a teaching aid and a learning aid. If I've got a last minute gig and I'm like, I'm just going to go onto YouTube. How does this song go?
Just before you're going to run out the door, it's like, quickly, how does someone play this?
But yeah, I think it's I think I hate to be the person who's shouting at clouds, but I think new players, let's say new players, people who are coming in new, are they've got so much information available at their fingertips. They've got so much, or such easy access to music and to songs and to albums, that the idea, like you said, of getting one album because you only had 10 quid pocket money, and you had to make that 10 quid last. So you'd go out and get one album and you just sit on that album for a month.
100%.
It's just like, that's not happening anymore. And I think people are just missing out. And I had a student yesterday and I said, what music do you listen to? And I said, I don't listen to music.
Oh, I hear this a lot.
I'm like, why aren't you listening to music? I was like, music's like free, essentially. And so I write down 2 albums. I want you to listen to these 2 albums. That's your
homework.
Forget playing.
I
just want you to listen to these 2 albums. That's all you've got to do all week. And I will bet my last shiny farthing that he won't fucking listen to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't see it as part of learning. I don't think anyone sees listening as part of learning music. And it's the fucking superpower of learning music is listening. I don't see many videos on YouTube how to listen to music. I don't see many reels or anything like that. There's nothing about listening. It's all, here's all the techniques, here's all the tabs. Visit me on my Patreon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, play by numbers basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
what age group's that you're talking
this
about?
kid 13, I think 12, 13.
Right.
So, but I see it more with teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't have any adult learners. They're all primary school, secondary school. But yeah, even primary school kids, it's like, what music do you listen to? It's like, don't listen to music. Like, why are you having lessons? Like, imagine learning French. Like, okay, who do you talk to in French? I don't talk to anyone in French. I just read from a book. It's like, well, you could probably only do 25% of what you're capable of.
Do these kids? I mean, I'm probably lucky. I've never done that type of teaching really. The only time I've done it was I did a little dep gig for someone who needed covering. He was away playing a show and he needed like a month of, can you just go into the school and just cover my lessons? And I did it a couple of years ago. And I've never done it before. I've never taught. All of my teaching basically from, I don't know, probably my early 20s has always just been college-based, university style teaching. So I've kind of missed out on that whole getting a teenager up from nothing to playing. And I did this school thing for a month. It was like just a day a week, and fuck me, I wouldn't do it again.
Really?
Because I mean, the kids were great and it was kind of fun, but it did feel a little bit light. I mean, I was lucky because at this particular place they had an amazing music department. They had great resources, and everyone was on the track to do kind of graded stuff. So it wasn't like you had to, they turned up and you had to say, oh, what are you into? What do you want to learn? They were all very much like, right, I'm doing this tune from the grade 3 book. And you would just put that on and then just read it off and just get them to, help them out. But I've never been faced with that sort of teaching where you're trying to sort of lead them to water, where there's sort of like no start point, I can't imagine how to even, for me anyway, how to get that going. I would imagine that's incredibly difficult and frustrating, possibly.
I mean, it can be, but I think that the trouble with a lot of kids today. Sorry, my phone is now beeping at me, and not necessarily kids. That's probably the wrong thing to say. Parents sign their kids up for everything.
Yeah.
So they'll do Monday. They've got football. Tuesday they've got chess club. Wednesday they've got judo.
Yeah.
Their day is just stacked up, and then during lunch, then during the school day, one day a week they have guitar lessons or they have piano lessons, and like I understand why parents do it. It's because they've obviously read something that says, if you want your child to be a genius, have them learn an instrument, have them play chess because it happens to this. Make sure they're learning martial arts because it helps with self-discipline. Get them into sports because it's good to keep them active.
Yeah.
But because they're only doing it once a week, they're not. I don't think they're getting the benefit of any of it.
Yeah.
And they're just, I don't know what they're spending, £500,000 a month, and you're not getting the benefit of it. Like, I think just choose one and just do it.
Go
and just
into
do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole trying to get. I've actually kind of found. I feel I've found like a niche in getting kids from nothing up to playing.
That's cool.
And I think I'm really good at it. And I've kind of fine-tuned the
like the steps.
This is what you're going to do. We're going to learn the open strings. You're going to be able to play through the open strings. Now you're going to be able to just play frets on those strings. So I'll say like first fret B string, third fret D string, and I can get them just moving fairly quickly.
Do you kind of gamify it?
No, I just try and get it as quick as I can.
Right. Okay.
And I get them up to playing just a G chord to an E minor. Get them strumming, get them tapping their foot, and I hyper focus on timing and rhythm. Can you play and tap your foot at the same time? Are you grooving as soon as humanly possible?
Yeah.
Because I've done similar things, like you said. I've gone in depth for people, and I've said, just play me a G chord, and it's like it's all fucking over the place. The things are buzzing. I was like, how long have you been playing? Oh, 3 years.
About 5 years. Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
Yeah, joking.
Yeah, mate. But the thing is now, I mean, I hear that, you'd probably be the same, where kids say that I've been playing for 3 years, been playing for 5 years, and it's like, fucking hell. When I was playing for 3 years, like, I'd done quite a lot of stuff already. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd done gigs, I'd been in originals bands, I'd already been in a studio and recorded stuff. You know, I mean, again, with not it wouldn't have been amazing, but do you know what I mean? I'd already pushed through. Like through the basics into trying to do these other things.
Yeah. How old were you when you started?
16.
Yeah, so I was 17, and I think within 18 months I was already in a band writing. I think we did a first studio session. And I think I was accepted into college after I've been playing for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think starting at 16 or 17, when that's all you want to do and you're just hyper focused on
it. Yeah.
Compared to a 10 or 11-year-old who's got 8 different things going on.
Yeah.
I think it's a different.
Well, my kid's like that now. He's 7 and he's played. Again, this is one of those things. Like he'll tell you he's played drums for like 2 or 3 years, and it's like, yeah, you sort of have. Do you know what I mean? And I don't push him. You know, we tried to. He wanted to have drum lessons. I sent him for some drum lessons for a few months, and he wasn't practicing. He's annoyingly natural at it,
right?
But still very much sounds like a beginner, but can pick things up very easily. But to his credit, he will just go and put a track on in his bedroom and sit down and try and play to it.
Which I think is a rare thing.
Yeah. And I think really that's because I never try and get involved. Every bit of me wants to go, you're not doing that right, and keep your foot on the pedal, and the sticking would be the other way, and that's not how, and all that type of stuff. But actually, if I just let him do it, he seems a little bit more focused. And I think probably when he gets older, if he wants to get into that when he's older, he'll have enough in the tank that it will get him going quick. He'll probably he'll get going pretty quick with it. But I don't want to be that parent that kind of, well, because I do this, and I have really high standards for me and my, people I've taught, and you have to, I don't want to do that. I just want it to be fun for him.
Yeah.
And if he falls in love with it and he wants to do it, great. But I agree. I think it's that thing of when you really commit, when you're at that point where you go, actually, what am I going to do? What am I into? And and it's all or nothing then, and I think that mid-teens thing, it's a good time to do that. I think you start to sort of just get that bug,
Yeah. And it's weird because I think teaching teenagers is really fucking difficult because you're fighting so many different things. I think 10, 11, 12 is probably, I find teaching them that age is the best. That's the best age. That's the little sweet spot. So when they hit puberty, they're already playing.
Yeah.
But anything before that is like they're still babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get them to play, and it's doable, but like lighting that fire under a 7-year-old is very difficult.
Yeah, of course it is.
But when they hit 10, 11, 12, then like they start to develop an identity around it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's when it takes off.
That's cool.
So the other thing we're going to talk, like the whole process, the whole point of this podcast is getting better. And I know you've studied with some absolute monsters. So I'd love to know what your process is about getting better, what your thoughts are.
Oh, okay.
What do you? Yeah, how's it changed? How's getting better changed over the years?
I think okay. I mean, so a little bit. I mean, you know a bit of this already, but just for perspective. So I studied very early. So I did a similar thing to you, where I played for a while and I went to music college. I went to music college after only playing for probably about 18 months.
Okay.
And I went to the first incarnation of the sort of Guitar Institute when it was still.
Is that Guitar X?
No, this is Guitar Institute. So this is
right.
pre-Guitar X.
Oh, right. Okay.
So this is in Acton, and that would later become a kind of break, or the schools kind of broke, and there was like Guitar X, and then there was what's known as the Institute or the ICMP now, and all this, and Tech Music School. So there's this weird split. But I studied at that, and this was just before they started to do a kind of an accredited sort of degree. So it was pretty much a case of like, you do a diploma course and that's all you do.
Yeah.
And that was an absolute roast, a real roast, compared to what you do. And again, it sounds like one of those things of like, oh, back in my day. But
yeah, we got a lot of those going on.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that when you look at modern music degree now, you may as well, it's like just tying your shoes.
Yeah,
it's so simple, it's so easy, but because of the level of the people going in, because they'll just let anyone in now, unless you go to somewhere like, Royal Academy, Royal Northern Guild, those places. You go to any of these kind of contemporary colleges that are actually, they're now universities, but they're not universities. They're owned by an investment group, and by a board of people that make an awful lot of money by putting people through the doors. Those places, it's no different to just doing a regular music degree at any college.
Yeah.
It's literally just generalized music now. Whereas prior to that, the model of a lot of these colleges was based around the sort of the original kind of GIT, Musicians Institute, Hollywood, Berkeley kind of structure.
Yeah.
So, on an average week, just in the first term, I think we used to have, we had like a chord class, whatever that was called, like chord lab or something. You'd have sight reading for notation. You'd have a sight reading class for rhythm. You'd have a rhythm section workshop, a live performance workshop. You'd have an acoustic guitar lesson, rhythm guitar lesson, blues lesson, rock guitar lesson. God, what else was there? There was tons. There's probably 10 or 12 specific areas of guitar playing that you're studying. Whereas what you do now is, when you go to these places, they'll go, oh, techniques, or they'll go styles, and you'll do like 2 weeks of blues, and then they'll go, right, and then we'll do reggae next week, and then we're going to do funk, and then we're going to, and it's like, well, actually, you're doing fuck all, because you can't even vaguely chip into any of this stuff at the level it needs to be at, to be any good at it. It's so, kind of watered down. So I did that, and kind of, that was a real skin of my teeth, kind of getting through that process. And it really, actually, if nothing else, kind of made me go, fucking hell. So you actually have to be really good.
Yeah.
And you actually have to work really hard to be good at this.
Yeah.
And I left college, and I would have been 18, getting on 19, I think.
Okay.
And took a bit of time out, got into some bands. I was doing some gigs, starting to do quite a lot of kind of functiony covers, bandy function gigs, things like that. And was in quite a few original projects. So I got into doing a lot of recording and stuff like that. And from that process, what I found was people would then recommend me to do things. Do you know what I mean? So kind of localized, and then a little bit in London as well. I'd start to get little bits of work here and there, and playing on like people's demos and tracks and things like that. And I took a little bit of time just to do that. I wasn't really practicing or studying. I was actually just playing. And after a couple of years, I kind of just hit a brick wall, and I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I wasn't getting any better. And then I hit up Sean Baxter, who I used to have for lessons at college.
Yeah.
And he told me that it was really odd because when I called him, he said to me, I think it's about the first time in about 3 years I've actually had a slot open up to take on a new student.
Right.
He said, it's so weird that you've called. And he remembered me from college, and I went over there next week, and I spent about 5 years with Sean.
Okay.
Just almost rebuilding things, and the thing that I got from Sean was very structured ways of doing things, whereby it was an amalgamation of really understanding the theoretical concepts and then being able to apply it technically. And then also kind of, for the first time, really thinking about strategies for how I might do it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than learn licks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I stayed with Sean for probably right into, I think, 2004 or 5, I think.
Okay.
And during that time, I'd ended up getting a gig teaching or depping at one of the colleges in Brighton. And I started depping for my mate Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if you know Jimi.
Yeah.
And then depped for him. And then because I kind of could do the few, I think it was possibly because I was quite broad. I could do a bit of jazz. I could do the fusion thing. I could do the chopsy, tappy, Greg Howe thing, and all that sort of shit. Guthrie, who was there at the time, I think he took that year off, and then they went, fuck, we need someone that can sort of do that. And then they pushed me in, and I did Guthrie's work for a year, which, I mean, I won't lie. I mean, I was barely older than the students, and I was a little bit like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
I was kind of shitting myself, but it was cool. It was very enjoyable.
Nice.
And then I left there, and I ended up in what you mentioned a little while ago about Guitarist.
Yeah.
So when Guitarist started, Sean had put me forward. He put myself and John Wheatcroft, who didn't know each other at the time, he put us forward to kind of start Guitarist, basically. So John was the head, and then the idea was that I would come in and be his kind of underling.
Yeah.
And we ended up that's how I met John. And what happened in the interim was that happened, and then I went over to Sean's for a lesson, and he casually mentioned that, right, I'm moving to Birmingham next week. It's like, so this would be our last lesson. It was almost just like, fuck, And so I'd kind of had this kind of, very well established, monstrously talented, amazing sort of tutor. And I'd been under his wing for a very long time. And then for the first time, it was a bit like, right, now, fuck off out and
you're out.
Do it on your own. And actually, it was really good because where I'd met John, and again, John was further along the journey than me, he had a completely different way of doing things. And John's way of doing things was very much more about, let's get together and play. Let's do gigs. Let's play shit. None of this, I'll stop and just show me what you did. Just play. And actually just being around that was kind of coming at it from a different way, more of a just do it sort of way. And he was equally as systematic actually as Sean, but probably a lot more proactive in terms of actually getting out and playing.
Right.
And I think it's just, I've been lucky that I've been around people. I've been around people that have kind of shown me different ways of, both directly and indirectly, of just being a musician. And I think that, coupled with the fact that, I was then kind of ended up doing quite a bit of teaching myself, I've kind of had this sort of three-pronged way of developing ideas and improving and practicing. So I've had very structured ways of doing things from Sean. I've had the kind of just let's play, kind of just do it, let's just try it out way with John. And then what I see as being, being tasked as being a problem solver.
Yeah.
As a tutor, it's kind of given me a sort of, I don't know, this kind of systematic way of hopefully sort of doing things, So what's happened in the interim is that I found myself becoming very, very self-sufficient in terms of figuring out how to overcome problems, how to help out other people with theirs, but also just, how to just be systemized. I think I said this to you when we were talking, that what I always realized was if I was put on the spot, if I didn't have a strategy, I couldn't even get going.
Right.
So I need at least a way of just getting it off the blocks. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like the dreaded thing when someone just in a gig just solo. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you do? And I think it's not that. So for some people, what they'll do is they'll go, well, I need to play, Dorian Lick 4 off of that sheet that I've got. And the thing is, how the fuck do you know that works? Because you're just playing muscle memory at that point. So, if you have strategic ways that work musically and systemized formats, you can at least actually get going.
Yeah.
And I like to sort of have a strategy for nearly any sort of scenario that I'm likely to come across, so whether that's, playing chord changes or coming up with a rhythm part, or, if it's a funk thing, like I have like a thing that I like in my head. I have stupid names for these things. So I have like a kind of funk toolbox kind of thing that is just a set of shapes that are all locked together with all these kind of connections that I know that I can just toss them around and come up with like 50 different variations, but within a small confine, and they all kind of sound authentic. So it's all about being like that. So for me, in terms of getting better, it's all about systemizing things for me. And again, keeping it within the remit of, like we were talking earlier, you were saying about the avatar thing. Like, I don't give a shit that I'm not great at fingerstyle, because someone like like my mate Stu Ryan, like is gonna he's amazing at that shit. It's like I'm never gonna be as good as him, because he's so good at it. So there's I might do it for fun, but I'm not gonna pursue it in a serious way.
Have you got enough in your toolbox to whip it out at a gig?
That's what I mean. Like it is like that. Toolbox is the word. So like I'll have literally a toolbox approach to playing acoustic guitar. So there's almost, so if someone sent me a chord progression, I could just hopefully fingerstyle that enough. So I'll have like, oh, that's the James Taylor pattern, that's this, that's that. And I can kind of interpret it. And then that's enough to get me through. Whereas, and the thing is, actually, in a lot of gigs, that's all you need. No one actually really wants a specialist. I mean, I think that's another misunderstood thing. I think people think that, if you walk into a, quote unquote studio session, and someone says, oh, play some shreddy thing. They don't literally mean Yngwie Malmsteen. To a lot of people, all they mean is play some fast rock thing. Do you know what I mean? And it could actually just be some repeating pentatonic Gary Moore thing that everyone plays. It doesn't actually mean literally it has to be John Petrucci. Do you know what I mean?
Whoa, back up. No, that's not what we meant.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, so it's, in terms of like professional players and that, a lot of the time they don't need to be highly specialized in all areas. They need to have, so I think of it as like the toolbox basics that most of us need to have to do most gigs.
Yeah.
And then, like I said to you about the top trumps thing, some of those areas you're going to be slightly better at than others. And then some of those areas you might actually be a real specialist in that area.
Yeah.
So, if someone does say like, oh, can you do this rock session thing? And then they say, oh, we want you to, recreate the beat at solo exactly. Some people are going to go, cool. And then other people will do a kind of so-so job, and it might be okay. If it really needs to be super accurate, then you might have to go like, oh, well, actually, I'll give such and such a call.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, what we do just has to sound authentic enough. And the references are normally popular music references anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have someone said to you like, "Oh, do a Hendrix thing there," or "Oh, it's a bit Stonesy." This,
Yeah.
And again, this is another issue with younger players not listening to music. So when someone says like, "Oh, it's this kind of Keith Richards vibe," it's a bit like Exile on Main Street, or, like it's a bit like Tumbling Dice or something like that, and they go like, "What the fuck's that?
Yeah.
Is it not Polyphia? I can do that." You know what I mean? Just yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can sound it. Make it sound like a fucked fruit machine. But you know what I mean?
Can you just lay down on the 2 and the 4 for 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I can't. Well, yeah.
But to me, I mean, getting back to it, that systemized way of that approach of just being able to kind of get your ducks in a row, and then again, not get too distracted by things that maybe are not going to be beneficial. I mean, if you want to do it for fun, it's cool. Like at the moment, I'm on an Al Di Meola trip at the moment.
Okay.
I really like Al's playing. It's like the acoustic, rhythmic kind of, the real kind of
right, yeah.
Acoustic driven stuff. And I've never really had the picking chops to do it. And just recently, like I've kind of found that that's starting to come out a little bit.
Sure.
And again, what I could do is get a metronome out and play a load of exercises, or what I could do is just learn a load of Al Di Meola pieces, and pull them apart and then work them up like that. So I don't know how much of that is going to be beneficial to my day-to-day playing, because I don't play like that. But I'm not looking at it for that reason. I'm just doing it because I think it's fun. It's cool. So that is kind of improving, and it's just, again, like you said, it's just enjoying playing. It's tapping into something that I do like, and I have liked since I was pretty young, but never actually spent any time on. But just because of the nature of it, it's rhythmic, it's technical, there will be a certain amount of bleed that will just kind of permeate into my day-to-day playing. But I'm not going to go out and buy an Ovation and start playing acoustic versions of Beatles tunes with highly syncopated it's not what I'm going to do. But the fun side of that, there'll be a certain amount of bleed into my day-to-day playing. But whereas I think if I suddenly picked it up and wanted to spend time doing Michael Hedges altered tuning, two-handed tapping style acoustic, I don't think much of that's going to bleed into what I would normally do. So I don't think I'd probably ever go too far away from my sort of gene pool of approach. Really, I don't think I'd do anything too wild.
So what would
but
so if I said what would your approach be to, I don't know, if somebody threw a tune at you that you couldn't play, was well beyond your reach, and you've got a week to do it? What's kind of your approach to nailing it and getting it done?
Okay, so there's a few things with that. So I think the primary thing with that is that people will normally immediately panic about the technical aspect. I think the one thing I've learned about just retaining music and kind of getting on top of songs, the more you know the song, the easier it is to play. And what I mean by that is not just the notes, but the more you know the structure, the more you know the harmony, the more you know about exactly what is going on, the easier that shit is. The part of the issue with the kind of tab style playing is that it's literally almost like you're primarily putting it in with muscle memory. Whereas, I mean, the way I think about it with music, there's kind of like three areas that are working at any given time. So you've got the physical, technical end of it, the actual playing part. You've got the academic element of that. So it's kind of, I guess, understanding the harmony of what you're playing, what interval, what notes am I playing, any of that stuff, the actual knowing what it is. So, for example, like, could you tell someone what's happening?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or do you just need to muscle memory it? And then the other part is the ear training, the oral part of it, you know. So in terms of things like the actual memorization aspect of that, you know, the memorization of the piece really needs to come from here. You know, not solely, but at least some of that. So when you hear people kind of not, I don't mean kind of scatting along with it, but sometimes actually vocalizing the notes independently puts that in a way that the muscle memory doesn't. Do you know what I mean? And the same with the harmony. It's like when you kind of look at something and you just play the line, but actually if you spend a little bit of time looking at it and go, oh fucking hell, it's just like a minor 7 arpeggio, and then it's just like a scale. Like if you look at any classical things, like Paganini things or Bach stuff and all that, when you look at that stuff, it's really logical in the way that it's put together, but you just need to figure the harmony out. I remember years ago, like I set my students on the second year, they used to have to play the first section of the Paganini Fifth Caprice. I gave them a transcription, but as just one part of their exam, they had to play that from top to tail, from memory. They had to learn it. And a lot of them used to think it was about the technique, but actually it was about memorizing it. And the trick to memorizing it is to not just learn the notes, but actually to go, oh, that's like E7 arpeggio. Oh, fuck, that's A minor, right? Oh, and that's a second inversion D major. And, you know, and that's how you start remembering it. So there's that. When it comes to technique, that's a different thing. I think the memorization, the understanding of the harmony does definitely contribute to that. Like, I think it just does. If you can see a big picture with it, then that helps. If it's I can't fucking play this, I need to play it technically. There's two arguments, one or two cases. One of them is the adage of play it slow with no mistakes and then gradually build it up. That's great, but it doesn't work if at the end of this week I need to play Get the Funk Out and I can't play Get the Funk Out, but I've got a gig on Saturday. That's when there's problems. So with that, you have to tilt it on its head and you have to use more of a sports approach, whereby if you think about the way sports science works and the way we learn sports, we don't slow shit down. We maintain the tempo, but the accuracy is all over the place. So we work on the accuracy, and it has to be like that. And that's actually the way we learn everything. It's the way you learn to drive. Do you know what I mean? The instructor chucks you in the car and just goes, right, fucking go. And you are going slow, but you're just like, don't die, don't die. But like you don't get that kind of safety net. You're kind of thrust right in there. So you have to put pressure on yourself to learn. And I think when you have that relaxed state of like, well, let's do it at 60. There we go. I think you do need to do that, but you need to do that to learn the notes or to learn what you're doing. And I think once that's ingrained, like, so for example, you know, if it's a picking thing or something, once you take that first section and you know exactly what the notes are, you need to then put the pressure on. And then generally the idea for me is you take it up to where it falls apart. You know, so you don't sit in your comfort zone. You go right to the edge of where it falls apart. And then you figure out what the element is. You know, so is it a case of I can't play fast enough? I mean, normally that's what people always think it is. They think it's that they can't play fast enough to play something. And if that's the case, well, what hand is it that's not playing ball? You know, people are very quick to give their picking hand a bashing, but the amount of players that their timekeeping in their actual fretting hand is not ideal. You know, so people will often say like, oh, I can never get my picking together. But if you actually isolate this hand, they can't play the scale with hammer-ons in time anyway. So it's like, well, this could be as fast as you want, but it's still going to be a bit sloppy because of that. So, I mean, it could be a good thing to maybe isolate the hands is a good thing. And then also just figuring out whether you can, at a base rate, say it's a picking thing, and it's, I don't know, so it's 120 in sextuplets. It's like, well, can you play one note at that tempo with the mechanics that you're trying to use? Do you know what I mean? Because the thing is now with YouTube and all this instructional material, people are taught how to do things. But what you've got to remember is they're taught how that particular person's doing it. So when you watch someone giving a picking lesson, they're showing you that for me, when I put my hand like this and I hold the pick like this and I angle it like this and I start on this stroke, it works. But that doesn't always work for everyone else. It's very particular. So I think there's less impetus now for people to actually go, hang on, what if I move the goalpost myself and try and figure out what works?
No,
Do you know what I mean?
I had a guy in on Thursday, and I hadn't seen him all summer. And as we left, last lesson in July, he wanted to learn Riptide. I don't know if you know that song. It's just.
Oh yeah, I know. Is that a Yuki kind of ukulele?
I don't know. Possibly.
I think I know what you mean. I think it's been on adverts and things.
A minor, G, and C.
Yeah,
and he just couldn't get the change from A minor to G.
Yeah.
He was just like painfully slow, like bum ba 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 ba. I was like, no, the song is da da ba da ba da ba ba da ba da ba. I was like, just do it at that tempo. Just do it at that tempo.
Yeah, just try it.
He was all over the place. I was like, look, when you did it slow, it was shit. When you did it fast, it was shit. But at least you're doing it at tempo shit. Now you only have to polish up one area. So we'll just, and for half an hour, just had him just play A minor to G to C, fast as you can with that rhythm, and we'll just tidy up the edges, and that's
exactly.
And
it worked, right?
He got
a lot closer anyway.
A lot quicker, and
well, the thing is, that's the thing. You will get closer. Where people chicken out is because it doesn't sound good immediately, and they go, "Yeah, but it's not working because it sounds shit." And it's like, "Yeah, but it sounds shit anyway." But the thing about it is, if you can just tell yourself that, yeah, okay, I know right now this doesn't sound good. Because again, the other thing that I've talked about this in classrooms for years, and there's always that one student that goes, "Yeah, but I read that if you play something wrong, like if you keep doing it wrong, then that programs it." It's like, fuck off, does it, you moron? Of course it doesn't. Because unless your ear is going, "Oh, that sounds fucking amazing," of course you're not. Do you know what I mean? Your brain has a very powerful error log that goes, nope, nope,
got it,
nope. And the thing is, but the thing is, the nope button is as important as the yes, because every time you go, that didn't work, you're telling your brain to kind of go, well, don't do it that way. Tighten it up, get it closer, get it closer, get it closer, get it closer. And that's how you improve. Whereas if you're just sitting there doing perfect repetitions, mindlessly, perfectly slow. Yeah, you're going to get there. But for people that need to work, none of us have
Take
that
the fucking
luxury.
training wheels off.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we're not in that world where we can do that. I mean, same as me. You wouldn't be able to take it. You're going to take a gig. You're not going to turn around to someone and go, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit. I don't know if I'd be able to play that by Saturday." You're going to go, "Yeah, fuck yeah, I'll do that," and then you're just going to sweat the whole week getting that shit together. And even if it's not perfect, chances are it's going to be good enough.
Yeah, I've just taken a chair on doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it
Right,
starts
okay.
next Sunday. And I emailed the MD. I was like, okay, yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, I can do it. Just send me the call times, and if you could just send me the chart over. And he went, yeah, what's your address? I went, what? He said, yeah, I'll post it to you. I was like, you haven't got digital? Is that? Oh fuck. Well, it's not going to get it till Monday. So I'm going to have 5 days of sweating through a pad.
No, I can't imagine what that is. What if it's guitar heavy or not? That show.
I assume they're going to be using all the songs from the movie, and some of those tunes are not 145s. They're challenging pieces.
They're
but
not
yeah,
at all.
I don't remember it being guitar heavy. So hopefully it's just lots of chord charts. But yeah, but yeah. So
fingers crossed.
When I'd see like some of the notes, like when I did some of the other shows earlier this year, going back to just trying to remember how pieces went rather than reading the dots as laid out on the chart, I'd write a little note across the top: G flat Dorian. Like, okay, right. Well, if I fuck up, I know I could just slide into some sort of G flat Dorian thing, and I'll be able to get. And no one's really listening to the guitar, and they always give you piano parts for the guitar charts anyway.
Yeah. Oh man, some of the. I mean, like I've quite a few clients that do West End shows and things like that, so I get to see a lot of the pads for things. And there are things at times where they'll send them to me and go, how, this is not playable, right? This actually isn't a thing, is it? And you look at it and you go, no, that's written by a piano player. That's not a thing.
When I did Grease, and Grease is a piece of piss. It's just blues for 90 minutes. But there's a couple of tunes like Hopelessly Devoted to You. Lovely tune. And they sent the pad, he sent the score over, and I was looking at it, I was like, I can't even play that. And when I got there on the first call, I was like,
was it chords, or did they have? Is that because that sound in my head? That sounds like it's kind of some sort of 6/8 doo-woppy kind of boom, 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 boom.
So
boom,
you've
boom,
got
boom.
the little Hawaiian guitar line at the start,
right,
and then it just goes into like arpeggiated chords. And I'm looking at the dots. I'm going, I can't play that. That's why the fuck would you finger a G major chord like that? And I just said to the MD, it's like, do you want me to play what's written, or do you just want me to just play arpeggios?
Had they done everything in like tertial hum, like thirds and all that sort of thing? Well, that's not how it's played on the
the more
but you know what? But the thing is, often with guitar charts as well, you're not actually. They don't want you to play it exact. They kind of want what a guitarist would do here. And I think that again, younger players sometimes are kind of worried by you have to play it literally verbatim, where there are times where you can almost kind of take a sort of squint at it, stab.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's going to really actually be what they're after, And you do have to have that sort of. Well, you have to bring your expertise to the table.
That's what I'm going to say.
And kind of go like like you're saying, like, man, guitar players don't do that, mate.
You get a piano player to play that.
But exactly.
Just give us decent scores. That's what I'm kind of learning. The more of these shows that I do, it's the guitar chart it's a very rough skeleton.
Yeah, exactly. It's guidelines, isn't it? It's kind of like
let's. The only thing I want to finish up with, and I know you've got a lot to say about it, is I want to know what your thoughts are on the state of modern music education. And I know you have gone off on we did speak about it a little bit earlier, but so let me ask you this: is it worth going to music college these days?
Oh God.
Right.
Possibly. I think it's changed a lot. I think that that area is kind of saturated really now with courses and things like that. And I think in a bid to build businesses, and a lot of them, and I mean, I'm aiming this at very specific places, specific institutions.
Give us the name?
In a bid, ones that are generally just letters and things like that, which is basically the main three I'm thinking of. But yeah, in a bid to build those as businesses, what happens is the initial idea, the original idea, which is well-meaning and is all about quality control and making sure people receive amazing education. What happens is they get investment from some outside source. Those people want to return. They want to fatten the cow up. So the only way to do that is to get more people in the door. The only way of people getting in the door is let everyone in. Doesn't matter what they got to do. Just let them all in. So what happens is you get massive class sizes. The abilities in the classes are so mixed, it's crazy. So you could have someone that's almost nearly good enough to actually just be pushed out into the industry with a little bit more work, versus someone who's like holding it upside down. They're in the same room, and you're trying to pitch to that. A lot of the time now, because there isn't a more stringent admission process and auditioning, things like that doesn't really exist. They just have an informal chat. You get a lot of people that couldn't give a fuck if they're there or not, to be honest. So I mean, and this is coming from like someone who spent probably nearly 20 years teaching in these places. I got to a point where I just walked out the door, because literally upped and left because of the state of it. Because for the 3 or 4 people in the room that are really invested and actually probably have a chance of doing something, there's an awful lot of people in there that even when they're well-meaning, chances are it's not going to go any further than playing in a covers band for you. And the issue that I have with that is you're kind of ripping people off, really. You're selling them down the river of like, just come and get a music degree. And realistically, a music degree doesn't get you any fucking work playing music. It gets you a teaching job. It's never going to kind of, again, if you want to get into, playing theatre shows or something like that, or get onto a tour or whatever, no one's ever going to go, well, have you got your degree handy?
Where did you study? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, where did you study? And the skill set that they teach at these places now is general stuff. So it becomes, and the thing is, put it this way, at one of these places, which is arguably the biggest place, I used to teach there. If anyone wants to go and do some research, they don't teach music reading now at all at any level. Because, and I quote, it wasn't very popular. Because it became an optional subject, and it wasn't popular.
Wow.
It's like, but other bullshit, which is, cultural perspectives and all this bullshit nonsense about writing essays is mandatory.
But reading music at music school isn't.
But reading music isn't.
I didn't know that.
And the thing is now, and things like assessments, so where at one stage you would be set, you have to do this. Nearly all assessments at one particular place is a case of just play something for 10 minutes, just fill 10 minutes with something. So how are you meant to mark someone if they turn up and do a buskers at best rendition of fucking Oasis tunes, and then someone plays through 10 minutes of Mike Stern tunes and plays the changes and nails them, has got great technique. How can those be possibly marked in the same way? Because they're so far away from each other. There's no parity at all. So the whole thing is just very wonky and very disjointed now. In that commercial
field. What do you think could be done to salvage it? What's going to have to happen?
I don't know. I mean, the one thing I'll say is the place I do teach at, I'm very lucky. I teach at an amazing place at the moment. I teach at a place called the Purcell School, which is, like, I've got 14-year-old kids that will play every student at these places under the table.
Nice.
And that's not an exaggeration. It's a very unique school where young kids of secondary school age go to do music. So it's called the Purcell School. It's in northwest London. It's near Bushy. It's in Watford. And basically it's part residential, so it's like a sort of semi-boarding school. I think it's kind of like a private school, but I think they have some sort of scholarship things. But basically everyone goes there and they're talented. They're naturally talented
Small
musicians.
classes?
Well, I do one-to-one. They've only just opened up the commercial wing the last couple of years, but it's a classical and jazz school, and they've started doing slightly sort of broader pop music courses, things like that. But I mean, I run a rock band, and the kids in my rock band vary from probably about 14 up to about 17, 18. And I can literally tell them, right, let's do this next week. And they will come in, they would have learnt it by ear, and they will play it near, and it'll take very little MDing to get it together. Like they played Get the Funk Out. The guy who was doing vocals just decided he'd score the horn section out on the night of the gig, and just gave it to the other kids, and that aren't in the band, they just rocked up, read it off. Man. And the thing is, those kids from that place, they go to Royal Academy, they go to Guild, they go to all those Trinity, they go to those places. And we've instructed not to. They don't get sent to some of these more middle of the road sort of colleges. And it sounds shitty, you know what I mean? I kind of some of those places used to be great.
I mean, I studied at one of them, but I think I
actually I know I watched your episode, or I've listened to your episode with Dave Kay. So I know where you studied, and like Dave used to teach me back in the day, years ago, when I was at Guitar Institute. So I've known him a really long time.
That school, they wouldn't let me do the degree because my reading wasn't good enough. And when I mentioned that to a few other people, I mentioned that to Stuart, I mentioned that to Dave, and to you, and the response was, well, that was back when it was good. That's when there was a floor and there was a ceiling, and you had to meet the criteria. And if you didn't, you come back next year.
But that's it. That's how it used to be. But there isn't any sort of standardized sort of. There's no standards in that world. And the thing is, because they're all essentially, their businesses masked as academic institutes. They're not. Those places are not academic institutes. They're businesses that people make a fucking ton of money out of. That, and that's the bottom line. And the thing is, they're hemorrhaging tutors because the hours aren't there for tutors to work at. The place where I was at, we used to have an amazingly strong guitar department. I think there's probably like 2 guitar teachers there now, because they just don't have any work for any more than that. We had tons of tutors at one point. It's sad. It sounds shitty, and again, I hate kind of having a sort of negative spin on it, because it sounds like you're kind of some jaded person. But when you've actually been there when that model and that idea was really great and churned out really good musicians, really good students. The people working there were pros. They weren't just ex-students who've been hired in, or some dickhead because he's someone's boyfriend. You know what I mean? So he's now the head of some fucking talentless twat. You know what I mean? It's just it's literally, you had to be good to work there. You had to be good to go there, and then you would get pushed, and you would come out the other end being actually pretty good, hopefully, and actually able to do some work. And the thing is now, the people that generally come out probably would have been all right if they'd just done it on their own, or if they just had a decent teacher.
My next question is, instead of going to music college, would you say it was more beneficial to one individual student to just have private lessons once a week?
If you've got the right tutor, the thing is, you can't just go to a provincial guitar teacher. You need to have someone that has worked in that world in some way, shape, or form. At some degree, and actually can pass some of that down. And not just you rock up and they it's not for everyone. I mean, some people just want to have guitar lessons, but if you do want to sort of almost do that for a living, you have to find like a mentor. Really, you have to find someone where you can almost kind of get in their footsteps to some degree, and kind of sort of follow the path a little bit and get some proper guidance. And I think that's doable now, because so many people do offer lessons.
I mean,
do you know what I mean? But the thing is, the fucking people you don't want to go to is some knobhead on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And pay them a stupid amount of money to learn something that frankly is completely useless in the real world. You need to find someone who actually does specialize in those things.
That's that again, like I mentioned about teaching kids from like the ground up. I see so many students, they'll come in and said, yeah, I paid for a little bit, or they've come from another teacher, and I said, okay, well, just show me what you can play. And they'll play Smoke on the Water on the low E string. I was like, okay, what else? And they'll play, I don't know, like Happy Birthday on the top E string, or Twinkle Twinkle. And I was like, great. All of that's fucking useless. All of it's fucking useless.
Yeah. And because the person that's been showing them, it's just phoned it in. I was like, they're like babysitters, and I think some parents probably see it that way. Just fucking go down to Steve for fucking half an hour and fucking let me sit in the car and just look at my phone in peace. Do you know what I mean?
To be fair, I try and find those times as well, but no, I just find it fucking frustrating. And when I speak to either institutes that I've been hired by to cover them, I'm like, look, this isn't fucking good enough. What is the point of teaching someone Smoke on the Water on the E string? Because you're never going to learn to play that. Why not spend that time learning to play a G chord in time? Because you'll use that every fucking gig.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you don't gig, when you say to someone, I can play the guitar, and they say, play me something, and you play a G chord, they're like, that sounds like what? That sounds like
exactly. It sounds like
You're
music.
playing the guitar. Whereas if you just play, you busk fucking something across the one string, it's like, oh, great. What's next?
Little Timmy plays guitar. Look, go and get
throw
your
in a second chord, and you've got a song. And
exactly.
Anyway, listen, I've got kids coming rattling home from school any moment now.
Yeah, I've got to go and do the school run as well, mate. We're in the same boat.
The rock and roll lifestyle is ended.
It is, mate. How things have changed.
But man, it was
don't grow up.
It's a trap. Is. It was really cool to talk to you. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, you too, mate. No worries, man. Anytime, mate. Anytime. Yeah, let's keep in touch. Just speak again anyway.
All right. Nice one, mate. I'll catch you later.
Nice one.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good one. See you, mate. Bye.